Howdy, welcome into a brand new episode of the Rams Report by Chat Sports. Today, we are talking post-draft free agent targets on this episode presented by Prize Picks. We're going to go through the 5 guys that I think could really make sense for the Rams to potentially pick up in free agency after the draft, because obviously they attack some things in the draft that primarily address future needs and take care of future problems. But are there still concerns in the here and now? I think maybe. I do believe that there are some spots on this roster that maybe you don't even call them needs necessarily, but things that could be improved. But just for the sake of it, we'll call them roster needs. And I want you to know, or I want to hear from you, excuse me. What do you think is the biggest need left for the Los Angeles Rams to address? I'm going to give you my top 3 in just 1 second here, but I want to know, what do you guys think in the comments is the number one thing left on this roster that still needs to be addressed by this Rams team? I think there's 3 primary ones. Number 1, a third wide receiver. I was having a conversation last night with Nico of LA Football Network. Shout out to that guy. I'm sure that'll be up on his YouTube channel pretty soon. Really fun chat. But one of the things we got going on was the third wide receiver conversation. Is it going to be Whittington? Is it going to be Mupfield? Is it going to be CJ Daniels? I think that is a conversation worth having. And I think there are options in free agency that would be upgrades over all 3 of those guys. Inside linebacker is another one. I would say it's slightly lower, and this is primarily just because the Rams have shown a lack of interest in really addressing this position in a meaningful way over the last couple of years. Really, the biggest thing they've done is re-sign Nate Landman, but I do think you could get better in the depth in that room. And then lastly, right tackle. But what I will say about right tackle is there's just really no good options on the market to get better at right tackle. I do think we could get better over David Questenberry as far as depth goes, but what are you going to do? Re-sign DJ Humphries? Bring in Jonah Williams from the Cardinals? I'm not excited about any of that, and I don't really think you guys are either. So I'll tell you, our options are going to be limited to third receiver and inside linebacker in today's video. And let's get rolling with our top option, Jauan Jennings, wide receiver from the dreaded, the hated San Francisco 49ers. I know we don't like this team at all, the team that he comes from, the team he's played his entire career for, but he would easily be my number 1 option for this Los Angeles Rams team to go out and get in free agency. And we'll have a conversation about why it might be tough to go out and sign Jauan Jennings in just a minute here, but if you could make it happen, man, I think he fills exactly what you're looking for in terms of a plus receiver 3. He's been a solid option for the Niners, never really the number 1 guy. And again, he wouldn't be anywhere near the number 1 guy here in LA, but he is incredibly productive, especially when guys go down. You look at the last couple of seasons for him, over 1,500 yards and north of 120 receptions. I think the biggest concern with bringing in a Jauan Jennings at this point is ultimately the price. I don't know if the Rams can afford him at a projected value of $22.6 million per year. But we're going to talk about a couple of other options here for the Rams in just 1 minute on today's show. But before we hit those guys, I've got to give a shout out to today's sponsor, the good people over at Prize Picks. Today's show is sponsored by America's #1 sports picks app, Prize Picks. Guys, if you love daily fantasy sports or you just want to make watching sports even more exciting than it already is, you've got to try out Prize Picks. It's a great time to get started on Prize Picks, too, with playoff basketball in full swing and the baseball season well underway. There is no better place to cash in on all that action than Prize Picks. And it's super easy to play, guys. You just pick 2 to 6 players, and you select more or less on their stat projections, whether you're picking from points, rebounds, assists. If you're going for basketball, if you're going for baseball, you can choose from hits, home runs, or strikeouts. PrizePicks also has awesome social features that allow you to easily tailor fade your friends or your favorite creators, including me and producer Mike. I'm Jackson Durham with no spaces, and Mike is Mike Jaraputo with no spaces. And you guys can go drop a follow and see all of our lineups, including this one that we've got going for the playoff basketball. I went with the less on Alperen Sengun. I went with the more more on Austin Reeves, and I went with the less on Reed Shepherd. So you guys can tell me on this lineup. You could fade me on this lineup. Whatever you do, just do it with our friends at Prize Picks. And if you're a new user, download the Prize Picks app today and use code HMA when you play your first $5 lineup to receive $50 in lineups. That's code HMA when you play your first $5 lineup to get an extra $50 in lineups with Prize Picks. The clickable link to download the app is in the comments and in the description below. As always, thank you to Prize Picks for sponsoring the video. Let's talk about our next option. And this is one that 1K Adams brought up today on her show Up and Adams. And he's been on the mind. I've seen him discussed in a number of different circles on Twitter. Some Rams fans talking about, could we reunite with Bobby Wagner? And there are parts of it that make sense to me. Obviously, this team needs to continue to upgrade its inside linebacker depth. Obviously, this defense is broadly young. I think that's another factor in this discussion. If you want to bring in Bobby, he could be a veteran leader for a defense that doesn't really have an established older presence at this point. Bobby Wagner could come back and fill that role for you. He's familiar with this coaching staff by and large. He's familiar with this team. I think there is definitely plus value. I definitely understand why people like Bobby Wagner from an outside perspective. He is a first ballot Hall of Famer. He is one of the best linebackers in NFL history. But at the end of the day, what I really get concerned about with the idea of bringing him in is at this point in his career, guys, he just isn't really good enough anymore in coverage. That's going to be the primary issue, I think, with Bobby Wagner is when you think about the biggest issue with our linebacker unit, do I think he could come in and be an upgrade over Omar Speights in run defense? Absolutely. But when I watched Bobby last year in his attempts to cover tight ends over the middle of the field at 36 years old, he doesn't have it anymore. Those guys are cooking him. I hate to say it because this guy's a legend. He is a future Hall of Famer, but he has lost a step in terms of keeping up in coverage. He's still great at filling run gaps. His ability to read and react and identify is going to keep him in competition there for a little bit longer than his athleticism will. But that loss of that step and just his age, it makes him such a liability in coverage. I think he can only be on the field in certain situations for you. And I don't know if he's worth going out and pursuing at more than a very low minimum cost. Let's talk about somebody else, though, moving back to receivers. And I will be honest with you guys, everybody else on this list is a receiver today. Stefon Diggs. Could he finally get his ring with the Rams? It's been a tough road for Stefon Diggs in his efforts to get one. Couple losses with the Bills in the AFC Championship. Bounced to Houston, and it didn't really work out there after an ACL injury, although he got started really, really productively. Went to New England last year, and it looked like things were getting there, and then you lose in the Super Bowl. But could it happen for him? Finally. The thing he wants, clearly, more than anything, is he continues to land in spots that he believes will put him in contention prior to being in Buffalo with Josh Allen. Obviously, takes a chance with C.J. Stroud in Houston, then goes to join Drake May in New England. And he's been right there in the past, like we've talked about. He's still incredibly productive. 3 of his last 4 seasons, in every season where he's been able to stay healthy over the last 4 years, he's been a 1,000-yard or more receiver, even though he continues to age. I don't really have any issues with him on the field. Everything is off the field with Stefon Diggs. My concern, I don't think you can do this. I don't think you can go out and sign this guy until you have more clarity on these off-the-field situations. He's facing strangulation and assault charges, to my understanding. He's still facing a pending lawsuit from one of his home chefs saying that he never paid her. He has a number of off-the-field situations that continue to loom over him and continue to brew around his career. And that's nothing new for him at this point, but it feels like it's stacking up more and more. And I think the Rams can handle his personality, but I don't think they want to involve themselves in any of this until more clarity is reached on it. Even though I do think Diggs could be an upgrade for this receiver room, I don't think you want this sort of off-the-field distraction if you can avoid involving yourself with it to begin with, because let's be honest with ourselves, guys, our receiver room has had enough off-the-field distractions this year for the entire offseason. I think we can all agree on that one. Let's talk about somebody else. Deebo Samuel. Deebo Samuel's been a persistent narrative around this Rams team when you talk about free agent targets, primarily because of one of the hires that Sean McVay made this offseason that surprised a lot of people, myself included, going out to get former Commanders offensive coordinator. Obviously, he mutually parted ways with them to go pursue head coaching opportunities. That didn't work for Cliff Kingsbury, so he ends up coming to LA as the assistant head coach. Is he going to be, like he was in Washington, pushing for a Deebo Samuel signing? He is buddy-buddy with Deebo, helped bring him into Washington, was a huge part of why that decision was made, and his usage in the screen game in Washington, which is just an enormous part of Kingsbury's offense to begin with. Does he want to go get his guy back in Los Angeles? I don't think it's impossible, and I do think Deebo, while obviously not the all-pro talent that he is at or was at his height, is perfectly capable of filling the receiver 3 void here at a very low cost. Remember, we're not looking for a number 1 receiver here. We don't need somebody to come in and take over the room. We just need somebody to fill this role and be an upgrade over Konate Mutfield, Jordan Whittington, and CJ Daniels, and I think Deebo absolutely can be that. But so can Brandin Cooks. I think at an even lower cost. What about a reunion with the Archer? One of my favorite Rams, man. It didn't go well in the Super Bowl. I know a lot of Rams fans get hung up on that aspect of Brandin Cooks' tenure. Obviously, maybe he could have made a stronger effort to come back for that ball that Stephon Gilmore picked off, but that's neither here nor there at this point, guys. I think Brandin Cooks is not who he once was. I'm going to absolutely acknowledge that. Less than 300 total yards the last 2 seasons. But he was productive in Dallas in 2023, a couple years ago. He's still only 32 years old, and he's very familiar to this staff. And he's also expressed a desire to potentially reunite with the Rams, saying on Good Morning Football recently after the Trent McDuffie trade was made that he loves what the Rams are doing and he feels like they're getting back to the F them picks approach that was so successful for them. You like it so much, Brandon? You want to come be involved? I think they would happily have him. He is a cheap option. He could definitely be obtained for the veteran minimum, in my opinion, and they know him. They know him very, very well. I think Sean McVay would love to have him back in the room to compete and to mentor a lot of these younger receivers. Obviously, Devontae is there, but Brandon could come in and assist with that. But let me know, of these options, who would you sign? Let us know in the comments below. Give us one of their initials here. We've got the whole list for you guys. JJ, if you're going with Jauan Jennings, the Niners, I know, divisional rival, but he could come over, get some revenge on the Niners for not giving him that long-term contract he always wanted. You want Bobby Wagner? A Bobby Wagner reunion? Give me a BW. Give me an SD if you want Stefon Diggs. A DS if you want Deebo Samuel. Shout out to Nintendo DS there. And then a Brandin Cooks. Give me a BC if you want Brandin Cooks. Let me know in the comments who of those guys you would want to see the Los Angeles Rams sign as a last-minute free agent to bring in before things really get going this offseason in camp. Let me know in the comments. We'll be back again for some more Rams videos later this week. As always, thank you guys for watching, and as always, let's go Rams.